Good evening, race fans, and welcome here to the seventh race of the fourth season of the Dark Horse Racing Series as we get ready to go racing here under the lights at the Homestead Miami Speedway. Qualifying currently underway here at this 1.5 mile speedway. Seth Cole alongside of Scott Rankin to bring you the 120 lap feature here tonight. Scott, obviously, these drivers coming off their second road course stop on the year last week at Watkins Glen, which actually saw quite a bit of shaking up as far as our top runners in the point standings.
Unfortunately, Seth, I was on holidays last week. Now, admittedly, I couldn't really go anywhere because my section of Australia, we in lockdown. But yeah, look, I mean, I'm a big fan of Watkins Glen, and it asks a lot of the drivers. On the surface, it looks very, very simple, but it is actually quite a complex course, and I think it asks a little bit too much of the drivers. If you're just saying it's caused issues for them. So, look, I mean, at the end of the day, you've still got to get through there and you've still got to maximize points. Some drivers would have gone into Watkins Glen and would have gone into most of the road courses with just a let's see what we can get out of this mindset. And, maybe we're seeing that in the results.
Last week, we end up seeing Matt Wagner pick up his first win on the season, his first road course win since all the way back in Season 2, as Bronson Stafford there completes his final lap, currently 11th on the board. You'll notice that the driver at the top is the 2 of Rick Ravon, who last week, after another top 3 finish, now has the point standings coming into tonight's race.
Run from Rick Ravon, and like I said, since the first race of the season, it looks like he was just trying to just work his way into the league, get his feet wet, make sure that he was happy. Is that who I think it is? Has just got a pole? It is, with an identical lap time. It's Jimmy Trinan has matched Rick Ravon's lap time.
24.947. Puts the two of them atop the board together, but it gives the tiebreaker, it looks like, to the 99. So Jimmy Drynan might be capturing his first pole on the season if it holds for this final 2.5 minutes.
Now I'm wondering what the tiebreaker on that is.
Me too.
If it's the second, the other lap that breaks the tie? And if it is, that would make sense because Rick Ravon's first lap was a 25.345, whereas Drynan did a 25.119. So that would make sense if that was the tiebreaker there.
Maybe go off the average of the 2 laps together,
could be.
Possibly. Yeah, that's maybe what it is. As several drivers out there running down some lap times. Jeff Hysong in the 18. Eric Schaus, who was actually the fastest in practice. And a guy I think we got to keep an eye on here. A former winner this season, but in his last 2 starts here at Homestead Miami, he's picked up a win and a second, and that is the driver that comes into this race currently 3rd in the points, Nick DeGroot.
One of those up and down seasons, but look, I mean, if you can point out anyone within the roster that hasn't had an up and down season, there's been a lot of very, very mixed results, and it's actually probably been one of the more curious seasons of any sort of racing series that I can remember. So look, I mean, at the end of the day, I'll take a look around and I'll go, yeah, look, this guy's unlucky not to be further up the point standings, this guy's, but it's about consistency now. We haven't seen Robert Maleska III showcase the domination that took him to a championship last season. We haven't seen anyone dominate in any sort of way, shape, or form in the same vein as Maleska III did last season, So look, I mean, end of the day, it's about consistency, it's about coming out, it's about getting those results every week, and if you look at the last few weeks, Rick Ravon has done that just about week in, week out, and that's why he's atop the standings.
He has been Mr. Consistency so far this year, no doubt about that. The road courses have not exactly been kind to Maleska III. He's glad to be back at the 1.5 miles as he jumps to the top of the board over Schaus, who had just taken the pole away from Nick DeGroot moments ago. So, a couple of late landers there at the top of the standings.
I tell you what, it has to be. It absolutely has to be that second lap. 25.345 for Maleska, because him and Schaus have done identical times. 25.2. So it's not even that overall speed, because they're identical on their second lap, but their first lap, Maleska was much, much slower. So it looks to be that whoever's the second car to lay down that equalizing time goes to the top of the board.
Henry Bennett, former winner this season, back at the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. Or, actually, correction, that's Road America, rather. Wrong road course, sorry. He is looking for his second win on the season as he will clock in at 8th. And officially, Robert Maleska III, who comes into this race, by the way, as your defending race winner, he is going to be leading us to the green flag. And In 2 of the 3 races that he has won so far this season, he has won them from the pole. So he looks to go 3 for 4 here this evening. And
Um,
I've crunched the numbers here, Scott, just real quickly, because I looked back through the last 2 races that they've run here at Homestead, Miami. Nick DeGroot, when he won here back in season 2, led 59 laps. Maleska last season led 57. So if a driver leads 58 laps tonight, they're winning.
Yeah, okay, look, that's fair enough. I mean, we've seen Maleska the third. The real power of Maleska has actually been in those fuel save races. He's also very, very patient. If you've watched him over the first couple of races or so this season, he waits. He picks a time, which is his go time, and he goes very, very hard at that point in time. Up until then, he's very, very patient. He's happy to let somebody else lead. He's happy to sit back and fuel save. He does whatever he needs to do to win that race. He's one of the most smart drivers I've ever come across, to be perfectly honest with you, in that vein.
You mentioned about fuel. Let's talk about that, because the numbers that we've been given here tonight, about 35 laps, you can make it on a tank of fuel. We have been told that there is every possibility you could stretch it to 40, maybe even maximum of 42 laps on a run. With 120 laps, let's say that we run this thing completely under the green flag. There's going to be those drivers out there that are thinking about just two-stopping this race.
Yeah, but look, it's going to be one of those very weird races whereby it takes on this sort of secondary quality of, it's about that fuel saving. It's about running a slower race rather than a faster race. There's a 5-lap difference between when the pit window opens and the pit window that they need to get to cut one of those stops out. It's not just as simple as you might think. We're trying to get to lap 30 here. That's our goal. If we can get there, fantastic. We're amazing. We're in a really, really good spot. If we can't get there, we're absolutely in trouble.
We've also been told that tires are going to play a factor into this race, that fresh tires will be key if we do end up having cycles of green flag pit stops. And talking about pit road, not only pit road, but these access roads through 1 and 2 leaving pit lane, and the access road over in the entrance of 3 going to 4 and heading to pit lane. They're going to be in use here tonight as well if we end up having green flag pit stops. And watched a couple of drivers leaving pit lane almost get their right sides off there into the grass. That could be pretty sketchy in terms of grip.
Yeah, how about the way that pit lane is designed here as well? So look, I mean, it's not easy to get to pit lane. You're going to have to get down there off on the entry to 3 and 4. So. Look, it's not just going to be as simple as, hey, look, we show up, we're quick, we're able to do exactly what we need to, So look, pit road is going to be a big, big question tonight. When they come, how fast they come, how stable they feel in the entry to pit lane, and honestly, that entry to pit lane is going to be so much more crucial than you would ever expect it to be.
Well, last season, Robert Maleska III started from the pole, led 57 laps en route to one of his 10 victories on the season. Can he do it again here tonight in back-to-back seasons at Homestead? He leads us to the green.
Yeah, just watch everyone fan out in behind him. Everyone's going to be looking to get behind someone early on. They're going to be looking to save that fuel, because regardless, if you can save some fuel in this early running of this race, your pit stops are shorter at the very least, So everything after that, it's just value town for you.
Well, Nick DeGroot and Rick Raybon, they are on go. They're not waiting around to stay behind somebody's draft. DeGroot wanted the lead. Raybon wanted third. Now they fan out with Jimmy Drynan up on the top 3 wide. Bright green machine, that's Eric Schaus on the bottom.
Yeah, continue to watch them fan out, especially way back in the pack. I'm surprised that Maleska's still leading. I think if you keep your eyes on Nick DeGroot, Jimmy Drynan, these sorts of guys, they're happy to let him lead right now. They're happy to just let it go. But the fighting is so intense just back there in the pack.
Boy, you saw that near contact between Rick Raybon and Jimmy Drynan off of turn 4, courtesy of the rear cam on Nick DeGroot's machine. That was a close call there in the first couple laps of this race.
Yeah, and it's going to be like that all night long, don't forget, as well. It's not as simple as just get your car down there, get a quick car run, do whatever you need to get through this race. So, look, guys are going to have to be fighting their way. You're going to have to be patient. But that lead that Maleska's gotten out to, Raybon's now there behind him, Nick DeGroot. Those guys will organize. They're smart enough that they know that they've just got to run their race and put themselves in the right position at the right times.
Riding on board there with Polo Hernandez, who picked up that third place run last week. Almost pulled off the victory. He and Rick Rabon just a lap short on fuel. Had to pit coming around to the white flag. That's how Matt Wagner was able to pick up the victory. But still, another driver riding some good momentum coming in tonight is AJ Hobson. Gonna jump down to the inside here on Jimmy Drynan. That's Henry Bennett up in the third groove, trying to make it 3 wide off the second corner. Almost got run out of room by the 99.
He fight quite deep in the pack for an extended period of time, so it's just not going to be as easy as you think. And like I said, fuel is such an important aspect of this race. The lead Moleskine is out to at this point in time. It's almost a second. He has gone. He's recognized that he is right about to break that toe, and if he can get rid of that draft, all of a sudden he's going to set sail off into the distance. Ravon needs to work hard, and he needs to work hard now.
Got about 2 car lengths back to Nick DeGroot, so DeGroot still very much in the draft of the 2. Eric Schaus right there as well. The gap just a little under a second from the front of Rick Ravon's machine to the back of Robert Moleskine III. It's actually closed up there off the final corner, closed up about maybe 2/10 down the front straightaway, now hovering somewhere in around the 9/10 of a second range.
Matt Wagner just jumped on the radio and said that was very risky, my friend. So somebody's just sent a big move on him. I actually think it's Jim Herrick that's getting aggressive at this point in time. These guys, obviously, the fuel numbers that we've been given and the fuel numbers that we know about, it's just too tight. They can't do it. They need to go
Wagner.
a fair bit longer.
Wagner got the wall there off of turn 4. It looked like barely brushed it. Had to jerk the car to the left, went down almost to the white line, the inside line. So a great save by last week's winner, but things not going the way he wanted early on in this race, that's for sure, as he starts dropping to the back.
Yeah, look, I mean, Wagner's going to have to settle now. I'm wondering if he didn't get damage off of that as well. That's a big loss to him. Wagner's got the skills. So for those of you guys who are new to the league, watching the broadcast for the first time, Matt Wagner, I believe, won Indy last year. Last season. So he's definitely a driver with enough talent to bring it out, to showcase what he's got, and win races. So look, I mean, the guy's got talent. But unfortunately, the guys that are all over him, they've also got talent. You know, maybe it's not in the same vein. Wagner's just got to breathe a little bit here, settle in, save some fuel, and he'll win this race by playing the long game, not the short game.
Matt Wagner, amazingly enough, in his career here in the Dark Horse Racing Series, he has 3 victories. However, none of them have come at 1.5 miles. 2 wins last season at the 2 mile, or well, actually one was a 2 mile track in Auto Club. The other one was a 2.5 mile win, as you mentioned, the Indy 500, and of course the road course win this season and the road course win back in season 2. So he's yet to win at a 1.5 mile configured track, and right now, not exactly the start he wanted, but at least he's still pointing the right direction. That car still appears to be up to speed, so still a long ways to go in this one. Plenty of time for recovery, but things have really spread out all of a sudden here, Scott. You've got, of course, Moleskine out in front. You've got these 3 cars of Ravon, DeGroot, and Schaus. They've got about almost a full second back to Henry Bennett. Then it's another full 1.5 seconds back to Polo Hernandez. So there's a bunch of guys here that aren't getting any benefit of draft.
I mean, yeah, yes and no. They are getting benefit of the draft. Well, actually, no. Yeah, you mentioned it. I didn't realize the gap had spread out that far. That's ridiculous. This is unusual for Moleskine. This says to me that you cannot make it on fuel. So Moleskine is basically going straight away. All right, I'm going to run the quickest race I possibly can. It's going to be the fastest. It's going to be the hardest. There's literally nothing else that I can do here. I've got to go out there and I've got to win this thing from the get-go.
On board with Kobe Moore. He's picked up 9 spots since the drop of the green flag. See Bronson Stafford just a couple cars up. He's also picked up 9 spots. Both of these drivers started back outside of the top 15. They've now worked their way up to just inside, or in the case of Kobe Moore, just outside of the top 10. So they've done a good job of making their way through traffic, as we are only 14 laps into this race. And I'm going to be watching these guys very carefully as the run goes on, because we were told that there is quite a bit of tire wear. These drivers can lose up to 0.3 of a second per lap on what they have with the tire buildup, with the heat buildup. And this is an 18 to 20 degree progressive bank track. I'm wondering how many drivers are going to be dealing with a tightness off the corner the longer this run goes on.
Could be, you know, it's not quite as simple as that. The tires, Yeah, they're going to wear, but the drivers have also got that weight jacket to play around with. They're smart enough. They've got to use their heads here. We've seen some phenomenal racing over the last few weeks, over the entire season as a whole, and ever since I've actually been working on this series as well. These are smart drivers. These are highly skilled drivers. This is not your regular, common garden variety driver that you normally get out of here. Yeah, look, there's going to be some tire wear, but these guys will be aware of that. They'll be driving the car with that, and my caution's out.
Caution is out. It's going to be for Dylan Moskowitz off of turn 2. He has hit something with both the front and the back end of his race car, as that thing is all torn up. First caution of the day. That's got fast repair written all over it. The other car leaving the vicinity was the 71 of Gale Brooks. Don't know if maybe he just had to slow to avoid the 4, or if this might have been a multi-car incident.
Yeah, I'm wondering as well. Like, I mean, it could be, a whole bunch of different things. So look, at the end of the day, they'll settle it down. They'll organize that out. They know what they're doing.
There it was through the middle of 1 and 2. That's AJ Hobson way up on the top side. Oh, Jeff Hysong. To the inside of Dylan Moskowitz. I'm not certain if Moskowitz knew he was there. Came down across the nose of the 18, and there you saw nowhere for the 71 of Gale Brooks to be able to go. A lot of damage sustained on that machine as well. So technically a 3-car incident there, leading to a couple of crumpled up machines off the second corner.
Look, I mean, car coming down, car going up. It's when you're going 3 wide, you got to manage that sort of a situation, especially very early on in the race. High risk, low reward. There's still, what do we got? We're 18 laps into this one at this point in time, and there's a long distance to go. What do I preach every single week? It's always about patience, patience, patience. You've got to settle yourself in. You've got to allow yourself to build into this race. You've got to allow yourself the opportunity to be there at the end. Because if you're not there at the end, you're not going to win this race. You're going to put yourself so far behind, So, look, I mean, these guys just need to use their head. They need to use their better judgment. They need to do everything that they possibly can right now to make sure that they're showing themselves a way out, a way forward, that they're there at the back end of the race, so that they've got an opportunity to win something like this as well.
Not really surprised. About 16 laps there on that run, and everybody came down pit lane, and everybody took on 4 fresh tires. So taking the advantage of the better grip underneath them here for this upcoming restart, not running the risk of staying out on old tires. So Maleska the third will be leading us back to green. Rick Ravon, Eric Schaus, Nick DeGroot, and Henry Bennett are going to be the top 5 when we indeed get back to green flag racing. Just want to remind everybody that our starting grid and our results screens are brought to you by lmcgear.com, your one-stop shop for all your motorcycle camping and backpacking needs, specializing in camping gear that is ultra lightweight and compact, making it perfect for carrying on your motorcycle or in a backpack. And they also carry all the motorcycle accessories you need to get your gear safely down the road. Check out lightweightmotorcyclecampinggear.com today. And for all of the Dark Horse fans here watching our broadcast tonight, head on over and use the promo code DARKHORSE10 to get 10% off any order today. That's lmcgear.com.
Yeah, look, I'm a motorcycler at heart, and I know exactly how important it is to get your stuff from point A to point D, and how difficult it is. But anytime that somebody's got a product that helps me out with that sort of stuff, yep, look, I'm on board, and I've definitely been browsing through their catalog as well.
Closest I ever got to a motorcycle was 10-year-old me putting a piece of cardboard into the rear wheel of my bicycle, so it sounded like a motorcycle engine.
Oh, you guys have that in the States too? I mean,
yeah. Cardboard, playing cards, yeah, it all works.
The closest I ever got to doing well on a motorcycle, I won an Australian title when I was 9.
Well, there you go.
So there you go. I've got pedigree. There's pedigree there. Everyone said to me, Scott, you're a trash racer. You don't know what you're on about. You don't know what you're... No. Hey, buddy. I am one of the best in Australia. You don't know what you're talking about, eh?
Is that an attempt at a New York accent? Because if it was,
I'm
a New Yorker, and I'll give you a 6 out of 10.
We'll talk about this after the race, because I want to take some tips.
There is a race going on, as we can clearly see. Yeah, flag was back out, and we got a battle for the lead. Rick Ravon, the points leader, just took the points lead from Maleska the third last week, and now he's going to take the race lead from him here on lap 21.
And look at the difference that being right there on the restart really helps. Ultimately, Rick Ravon started, he was, 5th place on the grid. You know, he was looking good early, like he might actually have a shot at the pole, and all of a sudden it didn't sort of work out. Then he settles in, he makes those moves, he makes sure that he's there in the early phase of the race. He just picks off guys when he gets that opportunity to. This time out, though, he's a lot closer to Robert Mileska, and all of a sudden that means he can challenge. I think we're now starting to see the regular Robert Mileska. What he realized on that first restart was that everyone was fighting behind him, that the guys that he's normally competing with were a little bit bunched back in traffic. They didn't have the best qualifying attempts at all. Another caution's out.
Caution again, and it's a big wreck, it looks like. I see several cars back there in turn 4. We've got, what, 3 upside down? One of them, I believe, is Jim Brooks. Gary Corley is another, and I think the third might have been the 40 of Jim Herrick.
That is a lot of cars all messed up there, and it looks like it started at, I think that's the entry to 3 and 4 as well, so not as, another one of those ones that's I'm sure going to be multi-layered here, and there'll probably be a fair bit to break down.
It's like George and Zaldo, and possibly Dylan Moskowitz might have been collected as well. Moskowitz used his faster pair under the last caution, as did, I believe, Gail Brooks. Let's see how this even started, because they looked like they were
full wide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe the driver that was in the middle of this.
Oh, Jim Herrick catches the wall on the entry to the turn. That's what it is. It checks him up, brings him down about half a lane, and of course they're 3 wide behind him, which forces the 4 wide scenario, and that's chaos just ensues after that.
Yeah, it was George and Zaldo that was going up the middle there for 4 wide, and yeah,
he had nowhere to go. Like
guys on the top side to go.
No, 100%. And look, I mean, at the end of the day, they were 3 wide and they were comfortable with that. The issue there is that Jim Herrick caught the wall, and everyone below him has tried to allow enough space, but it's because he's caught the wall, it's slowed him down and thrown him down. Because you got to remember, when you're trying to keep that car out of the wall, you're adding more and more steering input. And it comes a point, now road guys are going to call this understeer, you overlords are going to call this tightness, where the car just doesn't turn anymore. You're putting in too much steering input, and the tires are basically just skidding sideways across the circuit because you're overloaded the front tires. They can no longer handle the weight of the steering input that you're putting in. So that's called understeer on road, tightness on oval. Different terminology, and they do actually mean slightly different things, but that's like about as close as you're going to get. You can see that from Jim Herrick as well. He's trying to keep that car out of the fence, and then he just comes down. They're 3 wide, and they're a lane off the wall, so there's more than enough space there. It's catching the wall coming down, because you react once you come off the wall, you bounce down, obviously physics bounces you off the wall and back down a little bit, you're still applying that steering angle, so it's unfortunate for everyone involved, and just ultimately, it just all stems from a mistake, as so many accidents do.
Needless to say, quite a number of faster pairs are going to be used with this one, and we saw 5 drivers all there in the vicinity of where the wreck was off of turn 4. Theoretically, though, we had 2 different incidents that all just kind of ended up in the same area. Jim Brooks, George Zaldo, and Jim Herrick, they all made contact with each other, but then the follow-up wreck trying to avoid was contact between Gary Corley and Dylan Moskowitz, and they ended up spinning into the same vicinity as the other 3 drivers that had wrecked. So we'll call it a 5-car wreck, but in theory, it really was actually 2 different incidents that all just ended up in the same place at the same time.
It's one of those hard ones, and I mean, anyone that's been out there on an oval track, these guys are doing ridiculous speeds. I mean, I talk in terms of kilometers an hour. In Indy, you know, they're doing above 300 kilometers an hour. What's that, 200 mile an hour you guys are after? Like 220, 240, somewhere around there? Ultimately, the speed that they're covering at 100 kilometers an hour, I think you're carrying 100 meters every 4 seconds, so you're traveling 3 times as fast as that. So that's, you know, look, it's difficult, and the reaction times are so small, and the best guys have those reaction times and the muscles that they need to. But back underway, and this will be the first restart that Robert Mileska doesn't lead.
Wow, and yeah, he took the top line there to the outside of Rick Ravon, who was defending the inside, and it cost him. He was up top 3 wide, going to drop back to the 5th position now as Nick DeGroot tries to take the top spot, pushes up the track. There might have been a slight bit of contact between himself and Rick Ravon through the center of the corner.
And look, it's so difficult now. If he's got any damage to that front wing, he's trying to find that out. This is the scariest time for a racing driver. You're not sure if you've got damage. You're trying to assess the car, and you're still trying to go at the highest possible speeds that you can, because if you lose track position right now, and there's another caution, you're in trouble.
Now, there are a couple of drivers that were not documented that took on fast repairs prior to this last caution. You mentioned about Matt Wagner calling somebody out for a somewhat aggressive move. We saw him brush the wall. He already has used a fast repair. Same can be said for the 99 of Jimmy Drynan. Now, they're both run up inside the top 10, but they have no more mulligan to fall back on here for another 93 laps.
Yeah, no reader. You got to settle back in. But what I'm just watching and keeping an eye on is Maleska's slowly drifting back a little bit through traffic. That says to me that there is a fuel game that can now be played. And I'm wondering whether ultimately, Drynan's the kind of a driver, he'll just be aggressive. He'll be pushing the whole way. That's the kind of race that he prefers to run, and all power to him. He's reasonable at that. Matt Wagner is one of... I said Robert Maleska was smart. You want to win? You want to know how to win at Indy, you have to be one of the best chess players in the field, and Matt Wagner has done that successfully. He is up there as one of the best and the smartest. Right now, struggling for a little bit of a pace. Keep your eyes on him. He knows that he's down that fast repair. He's that fast repair in a hole. He knows that he needs to do a little bit of fuel saving. I wonder if he might just back things down a little bit.
And going back to what you're talking about there with Maleska, let's not forget the last 2.5-mile tracks we were at, Chicagoland and Kentucky. This is kind of the same strategy he played at both of those races, where he got the pole position, spent a good portion of the start of the race out in front, but then we ended up having a couple of cautions come out. He faded back, kind of hung around the 4th or 5th position, and then eventually made his move in the second half of the race. So this is almost the exact same playbook he has used in the last 2.5-mile races.
Yeah, and look at the number of caution laps as well. Remember, we said that you need to go 40 laps to a tank to make it a 2-stop race. Well, the field's been neutralized twice, so it's effectively a 2-stop race. Should be a 2-stop race from here if they can save enough fuel, and the number of laps that have been covered are going to be enough. Maleska, he knows that he can run this track at high enough pace that he can stick with these elite guys but burn less fuel. That's what his target is right now. There's a hole forming in between Pack 1 and Pack 2. I believe it's forming just in behind Eric Schaus, who's attached himself to this lead group of 5. And ultimately, I'm wondering if Schaus is doing exactly the same thing. Just sitting back there, he's eyeing off everything that's going on ahead. Maleska nearly gets the wall there! Either that was right on the limit, or it went slightly above that, and he may need a change of underwear at the next pit stop.
Hangs on to the 4th position, however, and for the moment, looks like he is up to speed. But remember, we saw Wagner just barely brushed the wall back around 20-25 laps ago, and he already is a fast repair in the hole, so only time will tell just how much that's going to affect the 91 for the remainder of this race. Now, mention the fact that Watkins Glen last week really shook up the points. It's really close between the top 5 in the standings coming into this one, so points lead could change again here tonight depending on the circumstances of the next 87 laps. Rick Ravon 24 points over Maleska III, only 30 points back is Nick DeGroot. Wagner with his win only 34 points back, and Henry Bennett only 35 points back, so that's super close amongst those top 5.
Yeah, and they're mindful of that as well. I mean, Wagner is definitely the driver that's at risk, so we've already talked about that at quite at length, but he's also been the driver that's been on the move on this the most recent restart as well. He's gotten by Jimmy Drynan now. He's actually running. They've started to form a breakaway that are attempting to run back up to the leaders. He's running very reasonable pace. He is faster than Eric Schaus right now, taking little bits and pieces of time out of him here and there. So ultimately, I expect him to start closing in, and he's in draft range as well, so expect to see that gap close. I'm wondering if anyone else will get organized from this true second pack. Let's refer a little bit to cycling terminology. You've got your lead pack, you've got your chase group, and you've got your second pack. That's what I'm going to call them. The chase group, right now, I'm wondering if anyone from that second pack is going to get their way around to the 4 of that pack and just start hammering down and going after these guys, or if these guys are just all in fuel conservation mode.
Charles Teed leading that chase pack you were talking about there. 8th position. Kobe Moore and Bronson Stafford completing the top 10. Following in the tire tracks, Bronson a little high there through 3 and 4, getting those right sides close to the outside wall. And Eric Peterson, that bright yellow machine back there, trying to catch the slipstream on the 61 and make it about a 6 or 7 car pack here, bringing along drivers such as Jim Herrick, Polo Hernandez, and Jorge Zaldo. One thing I did notice is a couple of drivers playing a little bit of fuel strategy under that last caution. Now, granted, Jim Herrick, who was upside down in turn 4, he had to use a faster pair, but he also took the opportunity there when we took the 1 to green signal to come down pit road and top off the fuel tank. So right now, he'd be able to go anywhere from 6 to 7 laps further than pretty much everybody else up here inside the top 10.
I wouldn't say 6 to 7 laps because probably about 3 to 4 of those at minimum were spent on a caution. So ultimately, I think he's going to go probably 3 to 4 laps longer than everyone else, and that's without fuel saving. Then you look at Robert Maleska. Keep your eyes on Bronson Stafford. There's some moving and shaking actually going on at the front of this pack. They're about to go 3 wide. Stafford's going to send it down the inside, look for a move. Yeah, so ultimately, the position that some of these drivers were in, if you're at the tail end of the field and coming back down pit road doesn't cost you any sort of position, in a fewer race like this, it's a guarantee. You come down, you top off, you take an extra set of tires if there's an unlimited tire set. If there's a fixed tire set, you put a line through that. There's no way that you can take that extra set of tires. You're shortening your longer pit stops. It's kind of like going out to dinner. These guys have gone out for dinner. They've got a race whereby they're going to make 120 laps out of fuel. Bronson Stafford has come down already. He's paid a bit more of the bill than everybody else has paid. And now that means that later on, he's going to have to pay a little bit less of that bill. That bill turns out to time spent stationary on pit lane.
And it looked like that move he tried to make on Charles T did not work out. I don't know if he just thought better of it and tucked back in line, or if he maybe was starting to feel that tire heat building in the right front. I wasn't sure if that car was going to be able to hold the bottom without drifting up a groove or two. Now Kobe Moore's going to make the move on Teed, however, move him up to the 8th position. And these guys right now, you're right, with them battling like this, they are losing out on catching up to Matt Wagner and Jimmy Drynan, who in turn are slowly starting to reel in the top 5. But for the time being, these guys have seemed to figure out, okay, well, it doesn't look like we're going to catch that lead pack. Let's figure out who's going to be running the 8th position, leading this second group.
What I think's happening in this second group is that high side, that's where all the momentum is. You're going to burn a little bit of fuel, extra fuel running up there because you're going to maintain a higher speed, but at the same time you're going to wear the tires less. You're not trying to force the car to go lower in the corner than it really wants to go. You're not putting excess load through those tires by trying to turn harder, turn more aggressively, trying to brake at the same time, trying to alter your speed. So ultimately they are going to save a little bit of tire up the top, but Bronson Stafford is faster than that pack. The only reason he's back there is he's calmed down, he's taken on a little bit more fuel, right? So what he was trying to do was he was trying to make those moves through the pack because he's faster than everybody else that's back there, but ultimately he's back there to try and play an advantage on that fuel game. Now he's going to look to the inside here of Kobe Moore, try and get that move done as well, but ultimately he wants to get back to that top group as soon as he possibly can. That's where the faster line is around this racetrack. That's where the better line is for the health of the race car over a longer stint. So that's where he wants to be.
Battle for second, exchanging hands. Henry Bennett getting around Nick DeGroot. That battle taking place almost a full second behind race leader Rick Ravon, and mentioned about the consistency Rick Ravon has had so far this year. Still looking for his first victory. But so far, in the 6 races we have run, he's finished every single one up inside of the top 10. 5 of them in the top 5. His worst finish this year, 6th place. That was the season opener at Michigan, and he has an average finishing position of 3.33 coming into tonight. And, of course, as we know, when it comes to an IndyCar series, consistency wins championships. The wins are great, but you've got to finish well every single week. You can't rely on a win here and a poor performance the following week.
Look, if you win every 3rd race and you finish outside the top 10 for the remaining 2, why did you even bother winning a race? Ultimately, that means you're going, yeah, these guys are the 10th and back. I'm going to beat them out on points because I've grabbed those couple of wins. But you're not really battling for a championship. In order to win a championship, you have to come to circuits you don't like, circuits you're not very good at, and you have to say, all right, I'm not going to win this race. I'm not competitive enough to be able to do that. Let's grab a 5th. Let's grab a 7th. You know, let's keep that points train running. It's about minimizing the loss to the other cars. Everything you do in racing, and in league racing in particular, is about minimizing the deficit. If you know that you're making mistakes, it's about minimizing those mistakes. If you know that you're overdriving the car, it's minimizing the overdriving. We've got a car on pit lane, actually, at this point in time, I believe.
That's George and Zaldo hitting pit lane, and this is way outside of any fuel window, I do believe. I'm not certain what the strategy is here. He was running last car on the lead lap. He's going to lose at least one of those laps here for this pit stop, which looks like it's scheduled, but I'm not necessarily certain what the strategy is.
No, I would say this is scheduled because remember, like I said, it's basically a guaranteed 2-stop race from here once we got those first cautions out of the way. So what he's saying is, I want to split my stint up into the tiniest chunks that I possibly can. Talking about tire fall off, yeah, it's only 0.1 to 0.3 of a second, depending upon how you drive the car, but if you're cutting down each of those little margins, then that's what you need to do. He's been down there for an extended period of time. I wonder if he hasn't got a hardware issue, a car issue, or alternatively, if he's grabbed himself a pit lane penalty.
Yeah, he's pushing 3/4 of a minute on pit lane right now. So yeah, that could have all the signs of a possible pit road penalty. It looked a little hot coming to
Yeah,
pit
it was
entry.
speeding in pit.
So that
And I
might
wonder
be
if not
why
he's
on pit lane. He's lost 2, now make it 3 laps, drops him down to the 20th position. Drivers 2 laps down. Gary Corley and Jim Brooks actually just picked up a couple of spots at his expense.
That's unfortunate for Jorge. I mean, you know, a good opportunity to come out here, run some good laps, see what he could do. Just caught up in some early dramas, and look, it goes back again. You've got to make sure that you're running clean. You've got to make sure, and that goes a long way when we talk about respect between the drivers as well. If you go out there and you earn the respect by racing somebody clean week in, week out, that means that at the end of the day, you are going to be allowed a lot more room. Because those drivers know that you can hold it. Alternatively, they may race you a little bit harder because, again, they know that you can hold it, and they're going to be a lot cleaner around you. So, look, I mean, we've got our first pitter from the lead. It's going to be Rick Ravon.
Yeah, that car, you saw the rear tires really locking up as he was trying to get that thing woed down to the 50 miles per hour speed limit. Of course, we saw him take that access road there through 3 and 4 as well, which these drivers are required to do for green flag pit stops. We'll see if he's going to be able to gain any track time here, and if this is going to draw anybody else up inside of the top 5, top 10 to pit lane.
Look, so there's 2 ways to go about this and 2 ways to go about your thinking. We've been under green flag for such an extended period of time that I think Rick Ravon's gone, you know what? I think I trust these guys. And he's been around this field for such an extended period of time now that he goes, yeah, I know these drivers. I know that they're good enough. I know that I can get a green flag run in here. He's taking a risk. He's taking a big risk. But at the same time, he also knows that he's one of the quickest cars out there on track at this point in time. He's been punching his way through. He's been leading this field around. We've got another car coming to pit lane as well.
That's last week's winner, Matt Wagner, diving onto pit lane. He's going to give up the 5th position to do so. Was running 6th before Ravon made his pit stop, moved up into the top 5, and now comes down to the attention of his pit crew. And yeah, you talk about trusting in the fact that we're not going to have a caution. So far, 2 yellow flags this evening. We had 7 yellow flags back in the first race here at Homestead in Season 2. Only 3 last year, however. So the odds are that we could maybe have another yellow flag, but I've got to bet that it might be possibly towards the end of this race. I think that we may see a full, complete cycle of green flag pit stops here.
Feeling we will as well, without somebody locking up majorly and going down. And the benefit of the pit roads and the way that they're designed here is that you will prevent that unless somebody goes mega hot onto them. And we've got the 007, so Bennett's into the lane. I've just seen Kobe Moore come to the pit lane. Big lock up from Henry Bennett. He may get a speeding penalty here. He was right on the line. There's the caution!
It's Polo Hernandez in the 0-1. He's up
Are
and
you
over.
kidding?
Somebody else was collected as well. I can't tell who that is. He's down on the apron. Might have possibly been the 7 of Gary Corley.
You know what?
Right
Hernandez, what was I just saying? What was I just saying about how easy it is to get onto pit lane here because you're going to take the access road? It's a lot simpler than you might normally think. Polo Hernandez just completely blows through it. He slides back up the track, he collects another car, and that car has just got nowhere to go. That is disastrous for just about the entire field that have come down to serve their stops. The 007 was just on pit lane. He was the race leader. He will maintain that lead. So that is very lucky, I believe, from Henry Bennett. Or did he lose a lap? I think he's lost down to the tail end of the field, but I think he'll regain the lead.
I think that he is going to remain on the lead lap. I think he got his pit stop done before the race leader came around to put him a lap down. So I think he got saved by that caution. I also think that if everybody comes down pit lane, well, actually, no, I was going to say if everybody comes down pit lane, Rick Ravon, Matt Wagner, Kobe Moore might get their laps back. It's all really going to depend on where they are on track in relation to probably Henry Bennett, who's going to inherit this race lead when everything cycles around.
Ravon's ahead. Ravon is definitely ahead of him. That much you can confirm. Jim Brooks is also ahead of him. Other than that, I don't see any other cars that are about to get their lap back here. You know what? Actually, Matt Wagner. Sorry, I lied. So it's Rick Ravon, Jim Brooks, Matt Wagner, AJ Hobson, and Covey Moore are all cars that are going to lap back here. They've stayed out. Some of those cars may yet still pit.
And that's going to end Gary Corley's night, as he was the driver that was collected up by Polo Hernandez. And just looking back at it,
Oh, no way.
from the onboard, it looks like he just carried way too much speed there onto the access road.
Ultimately, you know what's happened? Rick Ravon got the lucky dog. So he's back on the lead lap, and he can pit as a part of this pit stop cycle. Oh, my word. What an interesting race. This has developed. Ravon now, he's still got a fast repair, remember. So he is still a lot safer than he initially may have been if he was caught at the back end of this pack. A lot of these guys don't have fast repairs. Ravon has got to measure himself now. He's got to be very careful. He's going to drive through this pack, but ultimately he can be that little bit aggressive. However, should an accident happen in front of him and he collects it, he's got to make sure that he keeps going. He makes it back around to the pits. So there'll be a lot of things that'll go through Rick Ravon's mind. Ultimately, Rick Ravon, for me, has been the driver most likely to be able to punch his way through the fields. The other guy that I'm looking at that's got that ability right now is Matt Wagner. Now, Matt Wagner will get a wave around here. He will get his lap back, and he will be starting from the rear of the field again. And that guy's been able to make moves through traffic. So keep your eyes on this restart. You're going to have Rick Ravon and Matt Wagner just about locked together on this restart.
Covey Moore has also been a guy that's been able to move his way through the field. He started back in the 20th position, and before those pit stops began, we saw he'd worked his way up to the 7th spot, was battling actually for a lead car in Group 2 between himself, Charles Teed, and Bronson Stafford. So he's got a fast machine also, and is going to be one of those taking that wave around, getting back on the lead lap. I'll tell you a couple of drivers that this caution really was a big break for, however, because this helps Bronson Stafford be able to get back up here in this lead group. He's currently scheduled to roll off 5th on this restart. Jeff Heisung and Jim Herrick, they also are going to be up here inside of the top 10, along with Charles Teed. So we might have some new faces up inside of the top 5 here when we head to turn 1 for this upcoming restart.
And you know what I said? It was a 2-stop race at home. Well, that neutralizes the field. We're back to a 1-stop race. Ultimately now, we've just seen this pit stop cycle and how disastrous it's been for a couple of drivers who are a little bit more aggressive on that pit stop cycle. I think we now see the entire field run as long as they can. We've just seen a couple guys trying to make the undercut. Rick Ravon was the fastest car, and he was in clear air. So none of these guys who were running in behind him were able to track him back down, right? So therefore, it made sense for him to pit early. He knew that he had the pace. He knew that he'd be able to make the undercut work, and he knew that he'd be able to drive away from these guys off cycle. He was confident in that fact. The one fact that I was not confident in or unsure of a little bit for him was going to be this caution cycle. It's now played out. How does he play this next 10, 15 laps? Well, maybe he goes for the undercut again because he's cycled back in traffic. The undercut could be what saves his race again should things play out in his favor. They haven't once. Will they do it this time?
Yeah, I'm 100% on board with you about the fact I think you're going to see at least the majority of the field stretch it as far as they possibly can. I think that incident right there in the middle of green flag pit stops might have scared them off of possibly short pitting here and trying to get that little bit of advantage, with the danger that you could find yourself trapped a lap down. I mean, most of those guys that were trapped a lap down here, yes, they got the wave around, but even if they were trapped a lap down still, they've still got half this race to be able to work with to get back on the lead lap. That's not going to be the case the further we get towards the checkered flag.
And you've got to look at it as well. I mean, it's a mistake coming to pit road from Polo Hernandez. The guy's pushing. He's right there in contention, and he really wants to make something work. This is a freebie for Henry Bennett. This is exactly what he wanted to see. But ultimately, he's now got Nick de Groot in his rearview mirror. Robert Molesk's a lot closer to him. And don't forget, we haven't seen Bronson Stafford this far up so far tonight. Has he all of a sudden got something to show the rest of the field? Look at how aggressive Ravon is back there in the pack.
And he is moving all of a sudden already up to the 11th spot, going to move to 10th, and now going to try and pick up some more positions. Up through the top 10 he goes. Eric Peterson is next on his hit list.
Yeah, like I said, keep your eyes on this 2 car. Where's Wagner? Wagner's still stuck in the lap traffic, so he hasn't been able to get going quite as quickly as Rick Ravon. I think one of the things that Matt Wagner needed to do most of all was really attach himself to Rick Ravon. Make sure that he's stuck with him the whole way through. He's now going to get by this track. Ravon, by this pack of cars. Ravon's the next car on the circuit. He has got a lot of work to do if he wants to attach himself to Rick Ravon, but I think it's absolutely crucial for his race to do so.
Henry Bennett, Nick DeGroot playing a little hot potato with the lead. DeGroot took it through 3 and 4. Bennett takes it back through 1 and 2. 3 and 4. It's going to be DeGroot's turn once again. Now Eric Schaus has come to play. He's going to look to the inside of Henry Bennett for second place.
Honestly, if I'm in Eric Schaus's feet and shoes right now, I'm just going to let this play out. You've got Robert Maleska behind you. Maleska's playing the fuel game. You know that as a guarantee. Eric Schaus, just let these guys go, man. Just sit there, just cruise, just chill out, look after those tires, save as much fuel as you possibly can. And look at Bronson Stafford, another guy that's just chilling. He's happy. He wants to be right there. He wants to be watching these guys go head to head. He wants to watch these guys slow each other down. He's saving fuel. He's saving tires. He's lining himself up for that end of the race.
Yeah, Bronson Stafford, the last couple of weeks, has been a little bit of a downward spiral. We saw how strong he was at the beginning of the season, up there inside the top 3 in points, but did not exactly have the performance he was looking for at Kentucky. Visited the catch fence there over in turn 1, and then had a somewhat mediocre finish last week at Watkins Glen. 6th in the overall standing still, but 56 points out of the points lead.
That's unfortunate for Bronson. I mean, you know, first season for him within Dark Horse, but look, I mean, he's part of the Flat Out Racing Network cars, so ultimately, you know, we gotta share a lot of pride for having the sponsorship out there on the car, and he does a great job at supporting us and really showing his stuff. The paintwork that he's actually running tonight, I'd like to highlight that if I can. That's actually a paint that I had done up for one of my cars, and he liked it so much, he was like, dude, I need this in F4N, I'm going to stick it on, I'm going to run it, and he's been working behind the scenes to get that done. So, look, Bronson Stafford, bang-up guy. Look, I have no problems with everyone in this series. Maleska, I've seen him throw some aggressive moves this season. He's talked to a lot of the drivers about them. He is such a bang-up guy. He wants to create good, hard racing, but good driving standards at the same time. Nick DeGroot, look at the run he's been on in the last couple oval races. He's been right up there and challenging for wins. Unfortunately got together with Bronson Stafford. I believe that was at Chicagoland going into 1 and 2. Look, I mean, it's tough. It's not easy. It's a track that you guys haven't been to as a part of this series before. He's had phenomenal runs, though. Henry Bennett has just been lurking right below the surface this whole season long, just waiting for his opportunity to just come to the fore and grab one. And look, I mean, he's got an opportunity tonight. And let's not forget Eric Schaus. When was the last time we talked about Eric Schaus? We were talking pre-broadcast. Eric Schaus, Seth, did you forget that he was even in one of the fields at one point?
I did. It was back in last season at, I believe it was Circuit of the Americas. I said that he wasn't even in the field, and Matt Rod very quickly corrected me that he was up inside the top 5 and having a very decent run. So,
he's not out there. Who are we talking about?
Yeah, Eric Schaus, the guy running in 3rd.
Never heard of him. No, but Eric, that's very important to note. The reason that we don't actually point him out a lot, he has these very quiet yet strong runs. Great driver, but he keeps himself out of a lot of the chaos when and where he can. And again, he's done so tonight, played him back into it in terms of pit lane strategy as well. He set himself up really, really strong tonight for a potential podium showing. He's got an opportunity here, now he's got to pull it off.
How about that for a beautiful segue? We talk about Eric Schaus, and that leads us into talking about next week. These guys are heading to the Tricky Triangle at Pocono. Last place that Eric Schaus picked up the victory back in Season 3.
Oh, look, and Pocono is one of the, to be perfectly honest, racetracks on iRacing, Pocono is my favorite oval. By and large, it's so tricky. All 3 corners so different. They require different skills from a driver. In order for you to be able to win at Pocono, you have to prove that you are an all-round oval driver, and you cannot go there and win without time, effort, practice, and making sure that you keep yourself a very well-rounded driver. Is that Maleska right up there and nearly on the fence again?
Yes, it was. He and DeGroot actually both ran awfully high there through 1 and 2. Obviously, Maleska a lot higher, though, than DeGroot. I'm assuming that he's searching for clean air to the nose. I think he's trying to make sure that he's not in the slipstream of either one of these drivers, trying to make sure that that car doesn't tighten up on him, especially on corner exit. I think he's in search mode right now to be able to get a little bit of clean air.
Yeah, that, but alternatively, you're also always going to grab that, especially if a car's only running the midline. Schaus has got a huge run here.
He might clear, he will. before they even get to the center of the corner. Move him up to second place. This jostling for the runner-up spot taking place about 0.7 of a second behind Henry Bennett, and I've been keeping track there of Rick Ravon and Matt Wagner. They are continuing forward progress, not nearly as quickly as they were when the field was bunched up on that last restart, but they're up to 7th and 8th position, about 3.5 seconds back from the race leaders Rick Ravon. 5 seconds back is Matt Wagner.
Yeah, and now that you mentioned, I'm just going to have a quick look at a couple of their times. They are actually running just about the fastest laps on par with the leaders, if not faster than the leaders, sort of right there and thereabouts the whole race long. So they are coming. There's an opportunity that if these guys here in this battle pack that we're watching continues to fight it out very, very aggressively, that they'll just keep creeping forwards and just roam up on these guys. But again, remember, it's about conservation. De Groot's now seems to be suffering quite mega, so I think he was... That's what I was kind of looking at and looking at him and Schaus, and I think he was holding Schaus up a little bit the last couple of laps that he was in front of him. So Nick de Groot's driven quite aggressively at the start of each of these stints, and he started to fade towards the back end of them. Either that, or all of a sudden Maleska's just going, you know what? It's time to go racing, boys.
Yeah, drove it down to the inside there in 1 and 2, but you saw that de Groot on the top side was able to hold him off. He'll hold on to the 3rd position for the time being. Bronson Stafford right there in the vicinity as well. And how about Jeff Hysong? He's out of our camera shot here when we're looking at 3rd through 5th, but solid outing right now for him in the 6th position. Of course, had that early contact with Dylan Moskowitz that brought out the first caution, but aside from that, he's kept his nose clean, was on the lead lap when that caution came out, and under fire from Rick Ravon, but doing a good job here, keeping it up there inside of the top 10.
Yeah, really good job from Jeff Hysong. I mean, he's another one of those drivers that hasn't had a standout season, hasn't had a major result. But again, in the same vein of Eric Schaus, I mean, runs it quite quiet. We don't normally talk about him. I can't recall. I think that might have only been the second accident that he's actually been involved in this season. Very strong performer, consistent performer. Maybe not the fastest driver out on track, but a lot of the time you don't need to be the fastest driver out on track. You just need to be the smartest driver to put the car up there. He's done that again. The difficulty for Jeff Hysong right now is he's been a lot of time out on his own, running in clear air, and now Rick Ravon's come past him, so this will be a really good opportunity for him to show his pace in traffic once again.
Hysong so far this season, only one finish up inside of the top 5, and that was a 5th place run back at another 1.5-mile track of Chicagoland. Right now, running in 7th place, as you mentioned, right behind Rick Ravon, who's trying to chase down Henry Bennett, who's opened up 0.8 of a second back to Eric Schaus. Now, Bennett, I'm assuming with him being out here in the race lead, he is absolutely going to be one of those drivers that's going to stretch it as far as he possibly can before making the final pit stop of the evening. The question is, though, anybody else behind him, would they be willing to take the gamble? One driver that I'm looking at that I think could take a gamble like that would be Eric Schaus, because you mentioned about the fact that he's kind of been quiet this season, but he hasn't exactly had the best of luck either. He is 18th in the overall point standings coming to this one, 154 points back in only the first 6 races. If there's a driver that is going to try something outside the box to find victory lane that really has nothing to lose and everything to gain at this point, it'd have to be that 72 car.
I actually think the opposite, Seth. I think you've gone in the wrong direction with that one. Right now, he needs to stay within the box. He's having the best run that he's had so far this season. He's got a very strong shot at a podium. He's showed pace. He's driven away from Nick de Groot and Robert Maleska. If you drive away from those guys, all of a sudden you start to think in the back of your mind, hang on, I've actually got a shot at winning this thing. And I've been watching him. He is closing. It's very slowly, but he is closing on Henry Bennett. That gap's coming down minuscule amounts every single lap. He's just about spent the last 5 to 6 laps running in the 25.8s, but the high 25.8s, we're talking 8.7, 8.8s. And Henry Bennett, actually, sorry, wrong way around. Henry Bennett's been running in 25.8 the last time by. Eric Schaus has been running at 25.9. Other than that, it's been just about slightly in Eric Schaus's favor. So look, I mean, he might be in a little bit of a fuel save mode, might have made a little bit of mistake through one of the corners there, and ultimately, I think he's got a strong opportunity. When you're in this sort of a position, if you come down pit lane early, you're risking all of that, and that's why Rick Ravon's a 1.5 miles back there, because he threw caution to the wind, and he made an aggressive move towards pit lane. So ultimately, pit window's now open. These guys can get home any time from now. You might start seeing drivers come to pit lane, and like I said, Schaus I don't think is going to be one of them. Neither will Bennett. Probably not any of top 4, top 5.
right on cue. Bronson Stafford hits pit lane. I think he hit the commitment line at the exact moment you said the word now, so that was perfectly timed. Covey Moore in the 15 also coming down pit lane here, giving up a spot inside of the top 10. So now the gamble takes place. Now the waiting game begins of who's going to be the first one to flinch.
Look, so we're looking at 35 to 40 laps, right, from the last pit stop. That was completed about lap 58, about lap 60. So any time after that. So that means that these guys can run, and they, by my measurings, haven't been fuel saving. So I'm expecting them to be running, let's say, about lap 95 is where I'm expecting these guys to come in. So we got a 7 to 10 lap window at this point in time, you know. So, look, I mean, it's open. Bronson Stafford was in traffic. He had both Maleska the third and he had Nick DeGroot. They were holding each other up. They were racing each other very, very aggressively. Maleska and DeGroot have got to be very careful here that Stafford does not jump them in this pit window. Because if Stafford jumps them in this pit window, Maleska is going to struggle, I think, to get past Nick DeGroot. How many times this season have we been able to sit down and go, Maleska is struggling, Nick DeGroot is struggling? These words are just not common to the rest of us.
There, Jim Brooks in the 51 coming down to the attention of his crew, and I don't know if he might have had a slight issue getting onto pit lane or not, but he actually, I think, lost a lap before he even got to his pit stall. On the flip side, Covey Moore and Bronson Stafford, both of them pitting from where they were on track, they only lost one lap, so there is every possibility that they could find themselves with a net gain of positions if this green flag pit stop cycle completely takes place.
Really difficult moment in the race right now for Bronson Stafford as well, because if you have a look at where he is out on track, I believe he's sitting right in behind a lap car. That's not where it's Polo Hernandez too, so this is a car that's very much similar on speed. The whole reason that Bronson Stafford come down pit lane was to try and generate himself some clear air, give himself the opportunity to go out there, run as quick and as fast as he possibly can, make the undercut work. And now he's getting speed compromised by Hernandez. He clears him reasonably quickly, and Hernandez just needs to let this happen.
Now Hernandez 2 laps down, so a non-factor in the race win at this point in time. Also 3 laps down, we mentioned Jim Brooks, Bronson Stafford, AJ Hobson, and Covey Moore. They are all a lap down. Matt Wagner actually a lap down as he has ducked onto pit lane in the 11, just completed his service down the way.
Yeah, I think that's smart again from Matt Wagner. Again, another driver that's starting to range up on the back of traffic. He sees an opening and he's coming down to make sure that he can get in there. 63's on a pit lane as well. I believe that was Gale Brooks? No, AJ Hobson. So, look, I mean, I'm expecting any one of these drivers, if DeGroot or Maleska blink, in fact, DeGroot has blinked right now, I expect to see Maleska run 3 laps as hard and fast as he can, get that pass made, and come to pit lane.
The DeGroot going to pit from the 3rd position. He was just ahead of Robert Maleska III for that 3rd spot. They were having a good battle, but DeGroot is now going to give up all of that track position to come down, hopefully take on some fresh tires, which he's hoping is going to translate to some good outlaps.
This is going to be interesting because from DeGroot's standpoint as well, you've got to remember that Bronson Stafford was trying to make that undercut work on him. Stafford got caught up in terms of traffic. They're going to reach on. I think Stafford's got him. I really think Stafford is going to take him here.
Let's see if he's going to be able to pass him here. He is closing.
He is. He's on a corner exit.
Is leaving. Stafford, oh, he tried to tuck up in front of him, but Stafford had the momentum, and you're right. He's going to at least jump the 89, and don't forget, as mentioned, DeGroot was running in the 3rd position, only about 2 seconds behind.
Oh, there's a lot of smoke.
Bennett, and Bennett's on pit lane.
I think Bennett's locked up again. Remember the first time they came to pit lane under green flag conditions? Bennett was all kinds of locked up trying to get into the box. I think Bennett is a major risk factor here to getting a penalty. Look who's come alongside of him, though. I believe that was Eric Schaus that come to pit lane at the same time as him. Keep an eye on both of these cars. One of them may get a penalty. Neither of them got a penalty. They both got away with it.
And Rick Ravon's on pit lane. Oh, someone had an issue getting onto pit road. I believe that was Gale Brooks in the 71 back there. Locked up those rear tires, spun the car around on entry, but no caution going to come out. Jeff Hysong, Jim Herrick, Dylan Moskowitz, they're on pit lane as well. The lone guy that stayed out and is going to stay out another
No
lap,
way.
that's the 91 of Robert Maleska III.
I think, like I said, Maleska III is pushing as hard and as fast as he can for as long as he possibly can at this point in time. He's got free track that's just opened up in front of him. Of course you're going to do it. Stafford is struggling. The undercut worked. He got by. Nick DeGroot. Then they ran into traffic, and Bronson Stafford was struggling with those slightly older tires in traffic. It didn't go his way, and now DeGroot's back by.
Here comes Maleska now to pit lane. He's going to lock up that left front quite a ton. But he does get it down, looks like, to pit road speed. Jimmy Drynan and Charles Teed, who also stayed out, they're going to follow him down pit lane. Looks like this is going to cycle back around to the 007 of Henry Bennett. Right now, a second between himself and Nick DeGroot. Then about another 5 car lengths back to a good potential third-place battle between Eric Schaus and Bronson Stafford.
For Bronson Stafford, he knows right now that he's got the worst tires out of this bunch, so he knows that he's definitely going to be the slowest. Ultimately, if I'm in Bronson Stafford's shoes, it's a tough one. You either need to go really hard, go as fast as you can, and make sure that you get that move done and you block it, you cover the airflow over the cars for the remainder of the race, or you just let it happen. You chill in behind Eric Schaus. Ultimately, Schaus has now got the pace to start clearing him, start running away from him. So this pit cycle, the undercut, has not worked for Bronson Stafford. He had to try something. Ultimately, should it have gone in the opposite direction? Well, we're about to find out. If Maleska gets by him, then he's made the complete wrong call.
With everybody up inside the top 10, actually the entire top 15, all coming to pit road. The cycle is complete, and to your point, Bronson Stafford only gained 1 position from the start of the green flag pit stops to the completion. Was 5th when he ducked onto pit lane, and now cycles in the 4th spot, and he's got a hard-charging Robert Maleska III on those fresh tires, hounding him for that 4th spot.
Yeah, one's going to start ranging up onto these guys as well, so don't play him out of the picture just yet. He's just under a second back, and Stafford's going to get beat this time by, so Maleska's cleared him. That race has settled itself down, and look at Wagner. Now all of a sudden, instead of it being, you know, a 3, 4, 5 car battle for the lead for those podium places, we got 7 that are coming together right now.
Now looking at the lap times here, 25.5 for the 007 of Bennett, a 23.3 last time by for Robert Maleska III. So obviously those fresh tires are paying dividends in terms of lap times, but with less than 20 to go now and almost 3 seconds between Bennett and Maleska III, does he have enough time to get up here to the 007 if we stay under green from now to the checkers?
Look, it is incredibly close. The big issue for Robert Maleska is the fact that Eric Schaus and Nick DeGroot are in the way. Yeah, look, he's definitely got the pace, he's definitely got the speed, he's definitely got the ability to make these passes for the win. The issue is all of those cars that he has to overtake, they are gonna cost him time, and there's not much you can do about them. That's the way this pit lane strategy plays out. Does he burn off too much tire trying to get back past them? We'll have to find out.
Now as we're riding on board, you can see up ahead the bright green 72 of Eric Schaus. Former winner here at Homestead, Nick DeGroot running in second, and then that dot just up there in the center of 1 and 2, that is your race leader, Henry Bennett, who is hoping that he is 16 and a half laps away from capturing his 2nd win on the season. And bear in mind, too, that Henry Bennett came into this race 5th in the points, but only 35 points out of the points lead. He could very well, with how close things are, be your new points leader heading into Pocono next week, depending on where the rest of the top 5 in the points finish out this race. Yeah,
well, Rick Ravon, points leaders, just made a move on Bronson Stafford, like Stafford was standing still, so he is suffering in terms of those tires as Bronson Stafford. He is no longer a threat for a podium or even a race win. Cross his name off of that list. Also of an issue is that Matt Wagner is now catching Bronson Stafford at such a rate of knots that he's going to lose out top 6. He's going to go back to 7th place. Kofi Moore ultimately is another 5 seconds different. I think he'll manage to hang on to 7th place, but that'll be a phenomenal drive actually for both Ravon and Matt Wagner after that first caution. Oh, sorry, the third caution.
Another driver that could be in trouble here in these final 15 laps is Nick DeGroot, because he was last on pit road back on lap 94. Behind him, Eric Schaus, he came to pit road 2 laps later, and of course Maleska came to pit road 5 laps after the 89, so we could start to see him fall back into the clutches of those drivers in 3rd and 4th, and maybe he fall out of the podium before this race is over.
And have a look at the lines Maleska's taking. He knows that he's the back of these 3 guys. He knows where the air is and where he needs to put the car to try and get his car to turn. Schaus is trying to cover him off. Run that mid to low line. He wants to make sure that Maleska doesn't get the air that he wants. Ultimately, he's got the weakest tires here out of these 2, and Maleska is going to send it down there. This is a championship winner that's going to show you how it's done, how you win championships. But Eric Schaus says, no, baby, drive it around the outside. Maleska makes a mistake, and Schaus will hang on to that one. And I think there's a chance that that might even be Maleska's podium thrown away right there.
It could be. I mean, that's going to be very costly. And while it may not necessarily look like much since both drivers did not make contact with each other, that is going to build up the tire heat in that 91. So all of his advantage in those fresher tires may have not necessarily completely gone away, but it certainly is not what he had before.
No, and now he's dropped a lot of pace as well. He's dropped time to everyone around him. Now it's back to 0.3 of a second. Now it's going to, start ranging back up from Robert Maleska. Ultimately, he still has enough tire there that there's an option, there's a potential. At the same time, Schaus doesn't want to fight with him. Schaus wants to work with him as much as possible. If those guys are not fighting each other for position out on track, Schaus has got the option to go chasing De Groot. De Groot's in traffic, though.
That is Dylan Moskowitz in the 4, who is a lap down. He actually just got put a lap down, was running the tail end of the lead lap. Henry Bennett put him a lap down about 2 laps ago. De Groot finally does clear that lap machine, but that opened up another, 2/10, I think, for Henry Bennett over Nick De Groot, because he caught Moskowitz in the perfect area to be able to make a pass as soon as he caught him. De Groot had to wait a little bit.
Yeah, that's just traffic. That's how the traffic scenario really plays itself out. Ultimately, 9 laps to go or so here. I think this one is Bennett's to lose. He has to make a big mistake. De Groot, I don't think, has got the ability to catch him and pass him at this point in time. I think De Groot's real fight is going to be with Schaus. And Schaus right now, he's not close enough as well. With the amount of time that we have left, Schaus really needed that car to hold up everyone around him as much as possible. So I think it's going to be on between Maleska the third and Schaus for that final podium place.
I would add Rick Ravon into that as well, though, because I just noticed him on the same straightaway. He's only, about 6 car lengths behind the 91, and if he makes quick work of Moskowitz, I think you could have a 3-man fight for the 3rd position here in the closing stages.
Well, he's got a lot of work to do, though, for Rick Ravon. I mean, it's been a phenomenal drive. He's driven the wheels off of that car, and he's still right there and in the picture. Things didn't go his way tonight, but, as a potential champion and a series leader at this point in time, he's done a series leader's kind of drive. Things didn't go out his way. He still drove that car back through, and he's still going to, at worst, at this point in time, grab himself the 5th spot.
Eric Schaus so far this year, he's only made 4 starts, but only 1 top 5 in those 4 starts, and that was back in the season opener at Michigan. As I'm not necessarily certain if he was trying to turn the car down to block 91 coming off of turn 2, or if he was trying to avoid hitting the outside
Oh, here we go.
Whatever the case, though, Maleska alongside Schaus, not going to give up that outside light advantage, though, and Maleska cannot get the power down off the corner.
Yeah, and that's what he's struggling with, and that's why you're seeing that Schaus wants to defend from that high line, because all of that run that Maleska's getting down on that low side, Schaus can just run it around the outside. He's not burning up those tires. He's not putting the heat on those tires. He's conserving everything. His pace through the mid-corner and the exit is phenomenal, and if Maleska doesn't get it done and get cleared early and slide up the track, then it's all Eric Schaus's to defend.
They said Rick Ravon needed some help to be able to get up here and battle for 3rd. Is this the help he needed with these two kind of stalling each other out with the side draft?
Yeah, 100%. It's definitely really helping Rick Ravon. It's playing into his hands as well. Because when you're running side by side, you're not running optimum pace. You are losing a little bit of momentum to allow space for that other car. So that just completely and utterly plays into Ravon's hand. Maleska might get it here.
Be alongside. He might be able to drive it deep here into turn 1. See if he can clear the front wing of Schaus through the center of the corner. Nope, Schaus able to get back to the throttle a lot sooner, and he will hold off the 91 at least one more time.
Yeah, now it starts to get desperate because we've only got a couple laps left to run here, and that's where you can see Schaus come further down. He doesn't want Maleska to get as much of an advantage on the corner entry. He wants to shut down his pace, shut down his ability to drift up the track a little.
We were talking about consistency winning championships. Right now, Henry Bennett has not exactly been consistent. He's obviously up there inside the top 5 in points. Had a good start to the season, 4 straight top 10 finishes, including that win at Road America, but his last 2 finishes at Kentucky and Watkins Glen have been outside of the top 10, a 14th and a 15th place. Of course, bear in mind, the 15th place at Watkins Glen was really kind of out of his control with connection issues, but nonetheless, what sweet redemption it would be for him here today to be able to go from the dead last finisher at Watkins Glen to the winner here tonight at Homestead and pick up win number 2. He's going to be 3 miles away. Actually, correction, now make it 1.5 miles as he comes down to the white flag.
Yeah, keep your eyes on this battle though further back. It's been a phenomenal drive for the 007 machine, Henry Bennett. He got the luck that he needed on that pit lane strategy. Everything played out in his favor tonight. You need luck to be a winner, but in Eric Schaus or Robert Maleska's case, you need to be better. You need to be able to complete that pass. Maleska has not been able to do it. Here comes the dive.
Is he going to be able to get him at the start-finish line is the question, as Bennett takes the win. DeGroot in second, Dragon Race for third, half a car length, maybe a full car length. Eric Schaus will capture the podium, his first on the season. Maleska and Rick Ravon going to complete the top 5 here tonight at Homestead, Miami, but Henry Bennett is now going to join Robert Maleska III as a multi-time winner here in Season 4 of the Dark Horse Racing Series.
The one surprise that I did actually see there was I didn't expect Bronson Stafford to be able to hold off Matt Wagner, but Wagner just could not get it done in the same way that we were seeing the issues with Maleska not actually able to get past Eric Schaus because he just defended that high line. He looked after the momentum. It took a lot of tire. You needed to build a massive advantage to get that pass done down on the inside. Maleska, he had the advantage in terms of tires. He had that 5-lap advantage, you remember, in terms of tires. He still just could not get it done. He made a mistake. He drifted up the track, and that almost put him in the fence, and it almost took both of them out. But they both, to their credit, managed to defend that one. They both managed to drive around each other so cleanly as well for so many laps in a row, and what a phenomenal race that was from everyone in our top 5, top 6, top 7. They all ran phenomenal different races, dealt with issues at different portions of the race, but they still drove through it to their results.
We saw early in the season Henry Bennett pick up his first road course win on the season. Tonight he gets his first oval win on the season. And the good news, obviously, is he's going to be going to victory lane. He's going to be hoisting the trophy, and he's going to get some really good points here tonight. The bad news is the other the other 4 drivers inside the top 5 in points, they all finished inside of the top 7. So while he's going to get points, he's not going to gain nearly as much as I think he would have liked to.
I mean, at the end of the day, a win's a win. And I mean, even if you're not looking at the championship scenario, that gives you a lot of confidence going forward. We're talking about it, how Henry Bennett, he's been strong, he's won races, but he's had an up and down season. When you come to a racetrack like this with a difficult setup, a difficult night, though, you had to drive yourself to the fore, and he's done that on what has not been an easy setup for the drivers, an easy race for the drivers, traffic, pit lane, everything played its part. So whenever you come to a race like this, it's difficult, and you take a strong result away, fills you with confidence going forward, and you feel on top of the world.
Of drivers there inside of the top 10. Give them a bit of a shout out for being able to not only survive but also be able to get these finishes. Matt Wagner and Jimmy Dryden, we documented that very early on in this race, both of them had already used their faster pairs, so they were able to keep their cars in one piece, get good points nights out of it, as Jeff Hysong finishes up there in 8th. Kobe Moore, good job there to finish in the top 10. As a matter of fact, was it Matt Wagner, Kobe Moore, and was it Bronson Stafford? I believe those were 3 drivers that actually were a lap down at one point in this race. Were able to take the wave around and work their way back up inside the top 10.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, look, ultimately, tonight's race was all about skill. You cannot go. It's not one of those tracks where you just go out there and it's a chess game, right? It's when do I draft? When do I pull out of the draft? When do I push down on somebody? When do I take their air away? It was very much a race of you had to look after your car, you had to push, you had to drive it as hard as you had to drive it at different stages. Of the race, and ultimately, what we saw was that the best drivers come out on top. These are, like you said, Wagner, Stafford, Ravon, Maleska, Schaus, DeGroot, Bennett. At any time, any one of those guys could win a race off of the back of, next to nothing. Jim Brooks nearly won a race this season as well. He finishes 2 laps down in 18th. What we've got here is an incredibly healthy field of clean race drivers, aggressive race drivers. Man, it was just amazing. What a phenomenal race tonight. You can't ask for any more than that.
Absolutely. Some drivers that hit some hard luck here. Hobson had a great qualifying effort. I think he rolled off from the 6th position. He's going to be finishing off the lead lap in 15th. Of course, we documented what happened there with Polo Hernandez trying to get onto the pit road entry. The access road into turn 3 just carried too much speed. The guy who finished 3rd here last week at Watkins Glen ends up 2 laps down in 17th. 18 cars finished this race. Gary Corley and George Anzaldo finishing out of the race. That's a tough break there for George Anzaldo, because I actually look back, he was the runner-up finisher here at Homestead back in Season 2. So Homestead not kind to him 2 seasons later, but nonetheless, you're right. Definitely great race here tonight. Only 3 cautions here this evening, the same as it was last year, and I'm going to be very curious to see here when they actually get the points in and the official results and everything. I really want to know, did Henry Bennett lead those 58 laps that I was possibly predicting at the beginning of this broadcast? I'm not sure if he did or not. He spent a good portion of that last run out in front, but I don't know if
You
he hit
know,
the 58 lap mark or not.
no, I think he did. I actually think he did. I think he led somewhere in the realm of 65-ish laps, I want to say, because he was one of the last guys to come to pit road, remember? So Rick Ravon come down, I think, about lap 54, 55. He battled DeGroot at that last green restart. He was one of the last cars to come down pit roads. I think he would have led around that 60 lap mark. So I think the statistic lives on.
Well, if they get that stat put in there, if they get the export put in before this broadcast is over, I'll let everybody know. But let's see if we can talk with some of our podium finishers here tonight. Let's talk with a guy who really needed a good run coming into this evening's race. Going to finish in that third spot, Eric Schaus. Eric, it's Scott and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Hey, Seth, how are you?
Doing good, man. Good run for you here tonight. Consistently up there inside of the top 5, but man, a dogfight on your hands there in the closing stage between yourself and the 91.
Yeah, absolutely. He was, I know he was giving it everything he could. It was just the high line was just too strong.
That was a phenomenal race for you, Eric. I mean, we were talking about it, how you have like a history of just these really quiet assassin points to the race at Coda last season, whereby Seth even forgot you were in the field. Like you're just this really quiet, you play it under the radar kind of style of driver. And tonight, I think you really, you haven't had a standout performance so far this year, but to finally grab a podium, that's got to fuel you with confidence heading into the next week.
Yeah, absolutely. This is it's been a rough season. I've already missed a couple races. I've had some bad luck in some other of the races. So this is a good one to kind of bounce back with.
As my broadcast colleague loves to point out, how I missed your name at Coda last season. But obviously, one place where I definitely knew that you were there was Pocono last season, where you picked up that victory. That's where we're going next week. So what's the confidence level to maybe go back-to-back?
Well, I do like Pocono. I tend to have decent luck there. So I think I'll do all right, hopefully. Feeling good about it.
Just remember, if your race goes sideways next week, you have to jump down to the booth and tell us that it's actually not Pocono, it's Poke-O-No.
Yeah, that and the commentator curse. So yeah, White's blaming you guys.
Yeah. We've been recipient of the commentator curse many a time, so we'd be willing to take it again, no doubt about that. Eric, great run for you here tonight, though. Congratulations. Great battle there at the end as well to be able to see in the closing stages. So now we're going to turn the mic over to you. Let's do some thank you, sponsors, and shout-outs.
Yeah, thanks to you guys at FRN. You do a great broadcast. Really appreciate it. Thanks to Dark Horse Racing and for putting on such a great league. Thanks to my wife and father-in-law for supporting and watching the broadcast. And thanks to all the great racers out there. Really appreciate the nice, clean, fun race.
Eric Schaus, best finish on the season so far. 3rd place here tonight at the Homestead Miami Speedway. Congratulations, Eric, and best of luck next week as you try and double down at Pocono.
Thanks.
See if we can
Seth,
talk with.
I'm never letting you forget that, by the way, but that's fine because you can call me Todd Rankin as well.
I was just gonna say, Todd. Let's talk to our our runner-up finisher, a guy who is a former winner here at Homestead back in season 2, Nick DeGroot. Nick, it's Scott and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Yep, I gotcha.
All right, man. Well, obviously, very good numbers when it comes to Homestead Miami Speedway in this series. 2 second-place finishes and a win. What little more did you need there, especially on that final cycle of green flag pit stops, to be able to be up there, battle with Bennett for the win?
I needed him to stay out a couple more laps before he pitted out. I was betting on those tires to be able to get me to jump him and Schaus, and it worked. I was able to jump Schaus, but not quite get to Henry there. So if he had stayed out another lap or two, I think that would have been enough to get in front of him. And the tires would have been close enough. I don't think he would have had that big of an advantage, and I think I may have been able to hold him off. But yeah, once he came out in front of me, I kind of realized, all right, we're protecting the team 1-2 here, so kind of ride it out. And yeah, I think that's the first factory-backed 1-2 finish for us in this series. And I know Henry can't do the winner's interview, but the team owner's over in the general chat if you guys are looking for somebody to interview instead. Just want to throw that out there.
Well, that's a shame that Henry can't come join us because I was actually really
Yeah.
keen to chat to him. But anyway, look, I mean, we'll take it at the end of the day. Look, I mean, a phenomenal run for you guys. It was not an easy race. The fuel strategies, the pit lane strategies, all of that kept changing right throughout the race with the number of cautions. But ultimately, I think it was a difficult set and it was a tricky track to run tonight. But I think right up and down the field, everyone had an absolute blast. There were battles everywhere, and whilst the battles might not have been directly on track, sideways, car to car, they were still phenomenal battles.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I was a little bit thrown back because I expect Homestead to be very loose with these cars, and it really didn't happen much. I mean, it rotated a little bit on the exit of 2 at the end of a run if you had a lot of wheeling into it, but it was a very tight setup, so it was a very different challenge than what I'm used to at Homestead, and really that high line was prevailing. And when I had the lead there and was swapping with Rick and then later swapping with Henry, I really wasn't sure where to go. I wasn't sure if I should be protecting the bottom, protecting the high side, and it just didn't seem to work either way wherever I was going. So maybe they knew something I didn't, but yeah, it was real tough to stay ahead of another car when they were right on you. And on the flip side of that, hard to catch somebody as the run went on and everybody kind of leveled out with the tires. So it was quite a different challenge than what I'm used to, and really good result for this team. And also Schaus there in third place. He did a good job holding off Rob. I was worried about him with those fresh tires at the end.
Nick, before we even started this race, we were told that this could very well be a race of pit strategy. Drivers possibly trying to stretch the fuel to make this only a 2-stop race should we stay under the green flag from start to finish. Now, obviously, we had some cautions along the way, but when we ended up going back green flag racing, we knew you guys were going to have to pit at least one more time. Obviously, you guys would have had a number in your head of when you were going to come to pit road. Circumstances of who was around you when they came to pit lane might play into the factor as well, but when we saw that caution come out, with a couple of drivers getting trapped a lap down when Hernandez had his troubles over there in turn 3, did that throw any doubt into your mind about, is my number the right number, or do I want to stretch this a little bit further just in case a caution comes out, because I don't want to be trapped a lap down with only a minuscule number of laps to try and come back and get back up to the front?
Yeah, that was absolutely on my mind, and I was kind of going over it. What's the pros and cons here? But just with the feel of the race, and I even asked Covey, who was back there further in the pack, how's it looking back there? Does it look like they might get into it? And I kind of just threw it out there and was like, I didn't want to go too early, but I didn't want to be the last one to pit either, because if it goes green and you're the last one to pit, you're going to be in Rob's position, which is going to be in a very fast car, and if the caution comes out, you could be sitting pretty, but you're going to have to pass a lot of people, and I was not that great in dirty air, so I didn't want to be in that position. I'd rather jump them early and play defense and hope there isn't a yellow, and it just worked out. It was a gamble, and it worked out this week.
Definitely did work out. Obviously, a lot of momentum still for you. You know, you had that solid outing last week at Watkins Glen. You had that victory back at Kentucky. So, you know, the point standings are still awfully close amongst the top 5. All of you finishing up inside the top 7 here tonight. So, obviously, I would assume that the stress just continues to be there to be consistent week after week. So, with that being said, what's the confidence level heading to the Tricky Triangle at Pocono next week?
Oh, I love Pocono. As you guys know, it's one of my favorite tracks. It's such a unique track, and I love it. I love all 3 corners at that big, strange place. So I'm excited to go out there, try to get redemption from last season, and get that win back that slipped away, and continue to hopefully cut into Rick's points lead, because he's kind of been skipping ahead of the rest of us here. So it's good to narrow that down a little bit tonight.
Nick DeGroot pings up P2 here tonight at the Homestead Miami Speedway. It is his 3rd straight second or first place finish here at Homestead under the Dark Horse banner. Congratulations on that, Nick. Obviously, best of luck in carrying that consistency into next week, and we're now going to give you the opportunity for some thank you sponsors and shout-outs.
Yeah, Factor Back Motorsports, as always. You know, also kind of get the first ever 1-2 for this team. And, you know, if you finish in second, it's good to finish second to your teammate, better than anybody else. But, yeah, Cowboy Ship, BlazePod, HyperX, Motorsport.com, CoveyMore.com, all the great sponsors that back this team. It's really cool to get out there and win some races for them.
Nick DeGroot going to be the runner-up here tonight in that Team 1-2 finish, and he will look to carry that momentum into next week. Best of luck to you there, Nick. Congrats on a great performance here this evening at Homestead.
Yep. Thank you, guys.
And as we heard, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to interview our race winner here tonight, his second win on the season, Henry Bennett. We were going to take the opportunity to talk with team owner Kobe Moore, but it looks like we are not able to speak with him either. So that is going to conclude our coverage here tonight. But I'll tell you one thing, obviously, Scott, with the 3 cautions that we had here tonight, compare that to the 3 cautions we had last season. Homestead, no doubt about it, is a very competitive race, but you touched on it around the midway portion of this race as well. The confidence that these guys had that things would remain green with great battles through the field to come down pit lane, that has translated not only here tonight, but through the entirety of this season. I just think we're going to continue to see it down the schedule. Really, really good racing here tonight at a track that, a lot of drivers were saying they were kind of surprised of how the car handled.
It's good to hear that as well. You got to remember that this is a fixed setup league. It's not, the guys are just showing up and they're taking an iRacing setup. No, I believe it's actually Matt Wagner that does the setup building for this series. So it is a customized setup, and that means that the cars are going to handle a little bit differently. They're not straight out of the box iRacing default for the track setups. They've got a little bit of something added into them to make the cars handle a little bit better, and I think it's creating great racing as well. And I think that's what the plan was from the Dark Horse side of things. They wanted a setup that was going to create really good, strong, close racing, but the cars weren't unstable. They want a handful to drive around it. And so far, it's working. I mean, the racing that we've seen week to week has been phenomenal. Have a look at that race tonight. We had cars that were separated by about a second from first to second to third, 1 second from first to second, 1 second, second to third. And still, at any stage, any of those guys could have turned it up. They could have gone after the lead. We saw Rick Ravon drive through traffic again. That guy couldn't buy any luck tonight. I mean, if I'm being honest, that guy's like one of my biggest fans, the commentator. Every time we chat to him, he's like, oh man, you guys know what you're talking about. It's so good to see, and talk to a guy. But at the same time, you also want that guy to have those difficulties within the season, because now he's going to feel like he earns it. He's going to go out next week at Pocono, and it's not just going to be, I'm at the head of the championship, I've got things on my own way. He's got to think championship implications from here on out throughout the season. We have got, I think, one of the juiciest, spiciest seasons on iRacing that I've ever had the pleasure of witnessing. And I tell you what, I am excited for Pocono next week.
The season's still young. This is only the 7th race. There's still a long ways to go, and you're right. There are so many drivers that are up there with a shot of winning this championship. There's a lot of tough tracks still to come, so it's going to be a lot of fun to watch how these drivers all battle, not only amongst each other week after week, but during the course of this entire schedule. And I'm just sitting here shaking my head because I told you guys I would update you when the stats came in. I said at the top of the program that with Nick DeGroot leading a total of 59 laps here and winning the race back in Season 2, and with Robert Maleska III leading 57 laps here last season and going on to pick up the victory, that the driver tonight that would win would lead 58 laps. The stats are in. Henry Bennett led 58 laps. You can't script this. This is so... I don't know. I don't even understand it, but it is in 58 laps. Commentator's curse all of a sudden turned into a commentator's prediction, and I'm still baffled by it. I don't understand.
This just in. That's it. The internet has now died. We're shutting down. It's been fun. iRacing has now officially closed its servers. Seth Cole's got a prediction correct.
Man,
you've done it, man. You've literally broken everything. How do we move on from here?
Scott Rankin will be the next president of the United States. That's my oh man.
Stranger things have happened. Stranger things have happened. Seth Cole got a prediction right.
Stranger things have happened, but not to me. This one's got to be at the top of my list, I think. This one has spooked me. But nonetheless, thanks to everyone for tuning in to our event here at Homestead.
I've been Todd Rankin.
Speedway. You have been Todd Rankin. And Eric Chow was in the field. This much we've established. Hope you guys enjoyed our coverage. Hope you'll tune in next week as we're going to be bringing you the 8th race of the season at Pocono Raceway. Green flag next Wednesday night will be at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Scott, it's been a blast here tonight. Appreciate you joining me in the booth.
Oh, look, I come here. This is my hangout session on a Thursday for Australia, Wednesday night for you guys. It's been an absolute blast. I enjoy myself every weekend. You will see me again next week at Pocono. Oh no.
Absolutely. Congratulations to Henry Bennett on his victory here tonight at the Homestead Miami Speedway for the Dark Horse Racing Series. For Scott Rankin, I'm Seth Cole. We'll see you guys next Wednesday night broadcast courtesy of the Flat Out Racing Network.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flat Out Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flat Out Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flat Out Racing Network would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast.